O Yahweh, open up you my lips, and let my mouth show forth your praise. Kuma, Yahweh, Wayaputso o Yaveka, Wayanusa Misanecha Mikaniacha. Kuma, Yahweh, Wayaputso o Yaveka, Wayanusa Misanecha Mikaniacha. Arise of you, O Yahweh. Let your enemies be scattered, and let those that hate thee flee from before thee. Let all of Yasharah, Yisrael, who love, worship, and praise Yahweh, give him thanks by saying Hallelujah.
Family, you will remember that when I talked about prophecy going on, I said there would be a fake war in the fake Jerusalem while the real war happened in the real Jerusalem zone. And today we have the West still flying in the face of Africa, in the face of the East Africa coalition. And so what's going on in the Congo? What's going on in Africa? Let's look into it.
N'a déclaré guerre na Rwanda.
Yo, can somebody tell me what's happening? So is Felix Tshisekedi, the president of Congo, declaring war on Rwanda? Well, unknown to most folks, Rwanda and Congo has a long history. His Excellency Paul Kagame was one of the brains behind the liberation of the Republic of Congo, Uganda, and Rwanda. This movement was planned, funded, all the training was done in Tanzania. And that is what brought Musevene, Paul Kagame, and the late Laurent Kabila. Laurent Kabila used to teach in Dar es Salaam. These three gentlemen came together. They fought. The first victory was Uganda, Congo. Then they proceeded to Rwanda. And the story goes that Kagame was actually at some point the chief of military intelligence in Uganda. Now, once Laurent Kabila the late got into office, he decided, he was a very quiet man. You'd never know what his intentions were. He would speak less. He wasn't a military guy. Of course, Kagame and Museveni were. The story goes that once he got into office, he tried to turn against the people who put him in office. And so that is how he was assassinated. When Kagame took over Rwanda, so many Rwandese during the genocide ran into Congo. And so in Congo today, we have about 5 to 6 million Tutsis living in Congo. And this has been the biggest problem that Rwanda and Congo has, because Congo does not want to recognize these Tutsis as Congolese. Kagame, on the other hand, says, you're not going to kill my people. These are people who ran away from the genocide. They are Rwandese, but they live in Congo. And Kagame has also used them to exploit the resources of Congo. But you know, ladies and gentlemen, here we are talking about a united Africa. Here we are talking about East Africa community. And then we are declaring war on each other now. What's going on, guys? What's happening? Ethiopia, right next to us, just right next to Kenya, is at war. Who is funding these wars? Nobody's talking about who is funding the war in Ethiopia. Who is funding these wars? And then you look at that map right over there, there's Yemen, another war.
President of the Congo, he has asked his government to fast track the withdrawal of the UN nations peacekeeping mission to ensure it begins at the end of the year. So that was in 2023, December. And so the UN troops have moved out, and this mission is called MONUSCO. And it took over from an earlier operation in 2010 to help quell the insecurity in the DRC, where armed groups fight over the territory and resources, which is true. So we're going to look into that. And it says its presence, the UN's presence, has become unpopular in recent years for what critics have said is a failure to protect civilians from violence, sparking deadly protests. It is to be deplored that peacekeeping missions deployed for 25 years, over 6 million people have died in the Congo since 1998. And the UN peacekeepers are part of that whole situation. They have failed to cope with rebellions and armed conflicts, said Saith, who is seeking re-election in the polls planned for December, told the UN General Assembly on Wednesday. This is why I instructed the government of the Republic to begin discussions with UN authorities for an accelerated withdrawal of MONUSCO. So what's happened is that the troops have been leaving, the UN has been leaving, and of course, this is alleged, but we all know that this has really just been them manipulating to the height of now 8 million people dying in the Congo. So this is just the UN peacekeeping forces keeping peace for the West in Congo by allegedly assisting in the destabilization of it and the conflict between all the parties involved there. Let's get into this, family. We're talking about what is going on in the Congo because, as I said, the fake war would go off in the fake Jerusalem because that is part of the land of Israel, the northern kingdom. Meanwhile, the real conflict would be fought on the true continent. So let's get into it.
The Democratic Republic of Congo (DRC) conflict refers to a complex and protracted series of armed conflicts and political instability that has plagued the eastern regions of the Democratic Republic of Congo in Central Africa for decades. The conflict involves a multitude of armed groups, both domestic and foreign. Various factors, including ethnic tensions, competition for control over valuable natural resources, historical grievances, and political power struggles, have fueled it. However, there are some key elements and phases of the DRC conflict. Firstly, it is the Rwandan genocide fallout. The roots of the conflict can be traced back to the aftermath of the Rwandan genocide in 1994. The genocide, which resulted in the mass killing of ethnic Tutsis and moderate Hutus in Rwanda, led to an influx of refugees, including both perpetrators and victims, into the eastern regions of the DRC. The conflict escalated with the First Congo War, during which a coalition of Rwandan and Ugandan forces supported rebel movements seeking to overthrow then-President Mobutu Sese Seko. Laurent Désiré Kabila ultimately came to power with the backing of these forces. The Second Congo War, also known as the Great War of Africa, involved multiple African countries and various rebel groups. It became one of the deadliest conflicts since World War II. The war officially ended in 2003, but violence persisted in the eastern DRC. Despite official peace agreements, the eastern DRC continued to witness conflict due to the presence of numerous rebel groups. These groups, such as the M23, the Democratic Forces for the Liberation of Rwanda (FDLR), and others, have been involved in power struggles, resource exploitation, and human rights abuses. Control over valuable natural resources, including minerals like coltan, gold, and diamonds, has significantly influenced the conflict. Armed groups have exploited these resources to fund their activities, contributing to the perpetuation of violence. The DRC conflict has drawn in neighboring countries, with some supporting rebel groups and others intervening to protect their interests. International efforts, including UN peacekeeping missions, have been deployed to stabilize the region, but challenges persist.
So the players in this drama are listed here. And there was, as it has been said, there were two great Congo wars. And when Zimbabwe entered into the war during the Second Great Congolese War, they came in and rescued Kigali, who was swiftly being taken over by Uganda and Rwanda and Burundi. Given that the genocide in the Congo began in 1998, has reached 6 to 8 million killed there since 1998, and the UN has been there since 1998. Now we're going to see that Kagame seems to have benefited the most. Was it just peace for the West that they were keeping? And were they helping to maintain conflict in the Congo? You tell me. Tell me in the chat and put it on the board. As compared to all other African nations surrounding this conflict. However, I believe there appears to be a concerted effort to scapegoat him, and even for the UN, French, the UN, the EU, and North America to be hiding behind Kagame and blaming him. So he's the scapegoat. And he may very well, the Rwandese Tutu may very well actually be Edomites, the Black Edomites. Not sure. I don't have absolute confirmation. So let's continue with this, but I just want you to keep that in mind.
The motivations behind Rwanda's actions in the Democratic Republic of Congo DRC are the influx of Rwandan refugees, including both perpetrators and victims of the genocide, into the eastern DRC created a complex humanitarian situation. The presence of Hutu militias, such as the Forces Démocratiques pour la Libération du Rwanda (FDLR), in the DRC fueled Rwanda's concerns about the potential for these groups to regroup and launch attacks. Rwanda's involvement in the DRC can be viewed within the context of regional power dynamics. The desire to assert influence and shape the political landscape in the Great Lakes region has been a factor. During the First and Second Congo Wars, Rwanda and Uganda sought to support rebel movements and install leaders sympathetic to their interests in the DRC. The government has argued that taking military action in the DRC is necessary to prevent the resurgence of armed groups. The tensions have accelerated after the United Nations Security Council's plan to support the South African-led forces in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Rwanda has objected to it. In a separate official statement recently, the United States also accused Rwanda of supporting the M23 rebel group in the eastern part of the Democratic Republic of Congo, leading to a strong reaction from Kigali. In a statement issued on Saturday, the U.S. State Department condemned the escalating violence and urged the M23 to immediately cease all hostilities and withdraw from its current positions around Sake and Goma. The statement also called on Rwanda to promptly withdraw all of its military personnel from the DRC and dismantle its surface-to-air missile systems. However, these comments have drawn criticism from Kigali, with the Foreign Affairs Ministry stating that the U.S. statement misrepresents the situation and asserts Rwanda's right to self-defense against perceived threats from the DRC. Meanwhile, Kenya has deployed over 900 soldiers in Goma to aid peace efforts, with President William Ruto urging other regional nations, such as South Sudan and Uganda, to fulfill their commitments to send troops. Burundi has also deployed troops in South Kivu to combat the Red Tabara fighters, and the African Union has committed funds to support the operations of the East African Regional Force in North Kivu. Rwanda has given France and the United States a reality check and has vehemently denied and condemned the accusations of supporting the M23 rebels. Responding to the French government's statement on the situation in eastern DRC, government spokesperson Yolande Makolo said that France has an unparalleled understanding of the root causes and historical context of the conflict in eastern DRC. In other words, it was a clear warning for France to think twice before saying anything about Rwanda. If France continued blaming Rwanda, it would answer what Rwanda would ask, which mainly focuses on the French role in causing and escalating the conflict in Congo. During the colonial era, France, along with other European powers, exploited Congo's resources and exercised control over its territories. This colonial rule had significant social, economic, and political implications for the Congolese people. After Congo gained independence from Belgium in 1960, France continued to wield influence in the region through political and economic relationships with various Congolese leaders. During his authoritarian regime, France supported President Mobutu Sese Seko by providing military aid and economic assistance. Furthermore, France's involvement in the Rwandan genocide of 1994 had indirect effects on the conflict in Congo. Following the genocide, many perpetrators sought refuge in neighboring countries, including Congo, where they joined armed groups and contributed to regional instability. Throughout the civil wars that have afflicted Congo since the 1990s, France has maintained indirect involvement. Similar to other Western nations, France has economic stakes in Congo's natural resources, such as minerals and timber. this economic engagement has played a role in the exploitation and instability experienced in the region. Until now, Rwanda has stayed silent on this, but if France wants to play this game, Rwanda is more than ready to expose the realities.
Troops from Malawi, Tanzania, and South Africa are in the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo to support the Congolese army. The troops, known as the Southern African Development Community Mission in the DRC, are led by a commander from South Africa. They will be working with Congolese forces to fight armed groups in eastern DRC.
While I was in Rwanda, I kept asking myself, what is it that makes this country work? Because if you compare Rwanda to all other African countries, like even other countries that are seemingly bigger and much more established economies like South Africa, or they have a higher GDP, they're still different, or they're basically behind Rwanda for a lot of reasons. Like I say, Rwanda, you have no load shedding, lights are there working all the time, you've got now good internet infrastructure. I traveled with my Starlink there, I was able to connect it and also get it working. What I noticed was the leadership in Rwanda is next level. I think even the younger generation are learning what leadership really means. Like Paul Kagame, their president there, have done an incredible job of marketing. He's a good marketer because most of the time he's actually dressed in local outfit. That it inspired me when I went to Rwanda in Kigali. I visited one of the local designers there, who sometimes the president actually wears his items.
Yeah. How much is this?
It's $1,200.
Kagame is actually one of Africa's biggest problems because Congo is the biggest dissettlement of Africa that causes Africa never to unite. And Kagame is the reason why we've got the Congolese struggle.
The DRC, my basic understanding is that it's the wealthiest country
in Africa,
on the continent from a mineral perspective.
In the world, yeah.
It's the wealthiest country in the world from a natural resources perspective.
100%.
And you're saying Paul Kagame has a part to play in that?
Yeah, people don't understand that we always hear about the Rwandan genocide. The Rwandan genocide was started by Paul Kagame. And he started the Rwandan genocide because he wanted to take power by force in a country that would have never elected him into power because he came from the minority Tutsis who used to be supported by the colonizer and used to be the administrators on behalf of the colonizer. So for Paul Kagame to come back as a Tutsi to come and take power in Rwanda, he needed to do something. And what he did is he started the genocide. He started the genocide by bringing down a plane that had two presidents, Hutu presidents, the Burundian president and the Rwandan president. Paul Kagame and his RFP forces shot down the plane when it was landing back in Rwanda from actually an AU meeting. And when that plane came down, then it inflamed the Hutu people who knew that they were RFP fighters who were trying to take power by force. And so they began to fight against Tutsi people who they felt wanted to come and take over power. While they were doing that, Paul Kagame himself sent his forces to murder his own Tutsi people on a whole-scale level to make it look like a genocide so that he could then have his forces come into Rwanda and take over power militarily under the guise of stopping a genocide against Tutsis. These are all things that are factual. Well documented. Jeez. It is actually something that the International Court of Justice wanted to persecute him for. And then the Americans covered up for him and the French covered up for him so that it wouldn't come out. But Paul Kagame came into power by murdering his own people. Then when he did that, he then took Laurent Kabila, who was now living in Rwanda, to go and take over power from Mobutu Sese Seko. These are the leaders in the DRC. This was in the DRC. And the arrangement that he had with Mobutu is once you're in power, you need to bring some of my own people into your system. And the reason why he wanted to bring his own people into the system is that the Tutsis see themselves as a superior people to Bantus. The Tutsis see themselves as a superior people to Bantus. And so they want to reinstitute something called the Mapororo Tutsi Empire that is going to rule over Central Africa and the Great Lakes. Because if you look where they came from in Uganda, Musevene is Tutsi. And he is the one who trained together with people like Paul Kagame. Musevene is Tutsi. And he is the one who trained together with people like Paul Kagame. Musevene is Tutsi. And he is the one who trained, together with people like Paul Kagame, in Tanzania, together with our liberation fighters. And when they came from those liberation camps, then Musevene went and took power from Obote, and then he put people like Kagame and the Hutus and the Tutsis into his army and intelligence. They then started murdering non-Tutsis who wanted power in Uganda, because they were majorities. And that's how Musevene becomes the president of Uganda as a Tutsi, and then he begins to assist Kagame together with the Europeans, the Americans, to then create a force that is going to take power.
Jeez.
Together with the Europeans, the Americans, to then create a force that is going to take power.
Jeez.
Together with the Europeans, the Americans, to then create a force that is going to take power in Rwanda. And then they must take power in Rwanda, instill a Tutsi in Burundi, and instill a Tutsi in Congo. So when they then succeeded in getting Kabila into power, Kabila refused to put Tutsis into his government. And when he refused, then Kagame and Museveni then sent their armies and rebels into Congo with an intention to remove Kabila. Kabila then ran to SADC. And that time SADC had an organ, or the military institution was called the organ, which was being headed by Mugabe. And he said, listen, they want to overthrow me. And he gave them the reasons why they want to overthrow. Mugabe sent a fact-finding mission that it consisted of Zambians, Namibians, Angolans, South Africans, and everybody from SADC region. And he realized that this was actually a problem. So they went to Uganda, they went to Rwanda, they couldn't find Museveni when they went to Uganda, they couldn't find Kagame when they went to Rwanda, but they got information that there was going to be an overthrow of Kabila, and then the UN was going to be forced to actually come up with a policy that says Congo must be broken down into 5 countries.
Jeez.
The 5 countries would then be easier to loot for the West through Uganda, Rwanda, and their own people that they would have placed within the Congolese system. Then Zambia and Zimbabwe came up with a counter proposal, but they also sent the armies of the Namibians and the Angolans to go and stop Kagame from overthrowing Kabila. They were able to repel Kagame and Musevene's troops to go and stop Kagame from overthrowing Kabila. They were able to repel Kagame and Musevene's troops. And so Kabila was not overthrown because of that. For that reason, the Western world came together and imposed sanctions on Zimbabwe. Because they said that this military that was used in Mozambique, that also participated in Angola, and now is coming to Congo, is becoming a hindrance to imperialism. So we need to break the power of the Zimbabwean military. Let's put them under sanctions. So that's what caused the sanctions. So when that happened, it was fortunate that enough war had been undertaken by the Zimbabweans, the Namibians, and the Angolans for there to be people within the Kagame and the rebel movements who agreed to the Sun City Accord. And that's why you had peace in Congo and the Sun City Accord that was then brokered by Thabo Mbeki.
Brokered, okay.
Yeah. But remember, Thabo Mbeki was able to come and assist in negotiations. But Nelson Mandela had refused to go to Congo and assist Kabila on instruction of the Americans. The Americans said, you don't go there. But there is allegations that while all this fighting was happening, executive outcomes had people assisting Kagame and Museveni and the rebel movements to try and overthrow Kabila. So Kagame was being assisted. Museveni was being assisted by ex-SADF forces who are now calling themselves the mercenaries or the executive outcomes.
We call upon the world leaders to stop shaking General Museveni's blood-stained hands through funding and cooperation. Secondly, we call upon the governments and organizations all over the world to impose sanctions on him and the people that he uses to torture and kill innocent citizens. Now, for far too long, the Western world has believed that allowing dictators to hold their nations hostage is an unacceptable cost for perceived security. Leaders who tolerate dictators and treat them as legitimate partners are complicit in their crimes. Please do not be partners in crime. Do not sacrifice your moral obligation. Do not sacrifice your moral obligation for short-time convenience. Please stand on the right side of history.
The country we are talking about here is Uganda, and the leader that betrayed Gaddafi was no other than the Ugandan leader who propagated his betrayal. Muhammad Gaddafi, the former Libyan leader, was one of Africa's rulers who left a very strong mark on the continent. He spent his life reinventing himself and is widely remembered for his push for the United States of Africa. Even after 40 years in power, Muhammad Gaddafi had grand ambitions for his country and Africa. The story of his downfall is greatly centered around love, money, and betrayal, but the landmark he created is still one of the most remarkable in the 21st century. During his reign, Muhammad Gaddafi showed much love towards a particular country, its people, and the president of this country. But at the end of it all, it was this same president, the same one he considered his friend, that betrayed him. So which country is this, and who is its leader? The country we are talking about here is Uganda, and the leader that betrayed Gaddafi was no other than the Ugandan leader who propagated his betrayal. In 2016, President Yoweri Musevene of Uganda wrote a letter criticizing the United States and the African Union for their intervention in Libya and the wide Middle East region. He also stated that the US and the European Union had no business dislodging Gaddafi and Saddam Hussein of Iraq. But why did Musevene betray Gaddafi? Before we get in deep into why, let us see how they even got close to each other. How they became friends and what really happened that Musevene had to betray his own friend. Gaddafi's relationship with Uganda didn't just start when Musevene came to power. Gaddafi had been a longtime friend of Uganda. His relationship with this country he loved so much started as far back as the 1970s during Idi Amin's regime. He provided so much support for this nation, moral, economic, and military support to Amin's government during this period. Each time Idi Amin's government was faced with an attack, there would always be one person who would come to his rescue, sending troops.
After Amin's overthrow, in 1980, Uganda organized and held elections, which Musevene claimed that they were rigged, dragging Uganda into a civil war between Musevene and Obote. In this war, Musevene and his rebel outfit got stranded due to lack of supplies and military ammunition. When Musevene approached the CIA and the UK for arms, he was turned down due to his closeness with Gaddafi, according to the CIA declassified records. Now, in 1982, Libya airdropped heavy field guns and rocket launchers into Musevene's camps in central Uganda, greatly boosting his rebel outfit and making their victory possible in January 1986. In the early days of Musevene's government, Libya trained Musevene's military. In fact, Musevene's intelligence agencies, that is the External Security Organization as well as the Internal Security Organization, took their names after their Libyan counterparts. Gaddafi would make countless trips to Uganda and fall in love with the country by making investments and building infrastructures. For example, the Libyan Africa Portfolio LAP bought 51% shares of Uganda Telecom Limited and 60% shares of the textile company known as Tristar. Gaddafi also made substantial investments in Tropical African Bank, National Housing and Construction Corporation, the Windsor Lake Victoria Hotel, and so many other companies. Gaddafi even convinced Musevene not to sell unrefined oil, promising to help build a refinery and a pipeline from Uganda to Kenya. By the way, one of the little-known facts is that through Musevene, Gaddafi also funded the RPF rebels after they invaded Rwanda in 1990. He provided them with arms that were flown into Uganda and then handed to the RPF by the Musevene regime. This is the Kingdom of Toro, found in Western Uganda. In 2001, Gaddafi became interested in this kingdom. At the time, its ruler, Oyonyimba Kamamba Iguru, was just 9 years old. With Gaddafi's love for this kingdom, he became the main financier of the kingdom projects, including the construction of this mega palace. To To the Ugandan Muslim community, Gaddafi left a lasting legacy with a state-of-the-art magnificent mosque with the ability to hold a capacity of 3,000 worshippers. This beautiful peach and cream-colored grand mosque is the second largest in the entire East Africa. During his numerous visits, he even joked with Museveni, asking him to rule for life, and wondered why he even bothered holding elections. At one of his visits, he even promoted Museveni's son Muhoozi Kainerugaba from captain to major, and complained that Museveni was sitting on his son's ranks. It is also said that during the 2001 and 2006 elections, Gaddafi bankrolled Museveni by providing him with finances to run his campaigns during this time. This seemed like an unbreakable relationship that benefited both. So why did Museveni pull the rug out of Gaddafi? Now this can be narrowed down to two factors. First is the Western interests, and the other one is Gaddafi's ambitions. Like Ghana's first president, the firebrand Kwame Nkrumah, who called for the United States of Africa, Gaddafi poured a lot of energy, rhetoric, and resources into the quest for African unity. During a summit in Sirte in 1999, the Libyan leader helped convince 45 heads of state to approve the creation of an African Union, which succeeded the OAU, and for more than a decade, he was the largest patron and the most outspoken advocate. That same year, Gaddafi came up with the idea of a United States of Africa, uniting the entire continent, creating a single currency and a single military. For Gaddafi, the AU would be used as a launching pad for the creation of a United States of Africa. If there was anyone who would champion something of that magnitude, it was Gaddafi. It is estimated that roughly 15% of the AU operating budget provided by member states came from Libya. His move towards the integration never went unnoticed.
Libya's Colonel Gaddafi has some bold ambitions. His ideas for African unity involve the creation of a United States of Africa.
Whether real or imagined, this was a scary idea to the Western powers and some African leaders who worried about their positions and influence in a united Africa. The idea of a United States of Africa had African leaders divided on the matter. Among those against was General Museveni.
Yes, but I bring up a case of another thing, even though it may sound as if I'm interfering here, or I shouldn't. I'm aware of Mr. Gaddafi's approaches and efforts to get a foothold in your part of Africa and all, and I just like to intervene and caution.
A man Gaddafi had helped come to power, financed his elections, backed to rule for life, and invested a lot in his country. Two reasons explain Museveni's disagreement. First, it was a threat to his own grip on power in Uganda. Though Museveni appreciated the support and flattery, in his mind he did not fight to grab power to be under another leader. It was either him or no one else. Second, Museveni is a regional power blocker for the West in the Great Lakes region. In this position, he serves the interests of the West through military interventions in countries like the Congo and Somalia, as well as providing intelligence to the CIA on the regional leaders.
So we can see that Museveni has been a puppet of the West and that he actually helped establish Kagame first.
The U.S. State Department released a statement condemning the escalating violence attributed to M23, characterizing it as a Rwanda-backed armed group. In response, the Rwandan Foreign Ministry voiced concern over what it perceived as an abrupt shift in policy, or simply a lack of internal coordination within the U.S. government. This prompted Rwanda to question the United States' ability to act as a credible mediator in Africa's Great Lakes region. But what is Congo's stance on this? As for Congo, it is threatening to invade Rwanda over its support for M23 rebels. Its foreign ministry said that the Congolese political and military leadership, including President Felix Tshisekedi, openly declared their intentions to invade Rwanda and forcibly change its government. In response to this, Rwanda has adjusted its defense stance accordingly, implementing measures to ensure comprehensive air defense of Rwandan territory. Kigali asserts that Congo collaborates with the Democratic Forces for the Liberation of Rwanda, a Rwandan ethnic militia directly linked to the 1994 genocide of Tutsis in Rwanda. It argues that the responsibility for safeguarding the rights and lives of Congolese Tutsis lies with Congo, and its failure to do so has resulted in 30 years of conflict and instability in the Great Lakes region. Rwanda maintains that the issue of M23 must be resolved through political means among Congolese stakeholders and will not tolerate attempts to shift the problem onto Rwanda through force. As for the United States' demands for the withdrawal of troops and missile systems from eastern Congo on Monday, Rwanda rejected it. It said that the missile system is necessary to defend Rwandan territory amid what it describes as a significant military buildup by Congo near the border. Rwanda's foreign ministry expressed concerns over threats to Rwandan national security due to the presence of an armed group in Congo, including alleged perpetrators of the 1994 genocide. According to the statement, the rebel faction FDLR is fully intertwined with the Congolese army. While Rwanda has long cited the threat posed by FDLR, it had never before acknowledged a military presence in eastern Congo, with Congolese authorities accusing the neighboring country of actively supporting the violent armed group known as M23.
Do you think Kagame is being scapegoated and that everybody has been serving the West, both the EU and America and the UN, and now they're all just pointing fingers at each other? Like I said, as the fake war was going on in fake Jerusalem, the real war would be going on in real Jerusalem, which is the Congo and East Africa. Tell me what you think. Let's keep going.
Therefore now, France and the United States have said enough is enough and have ordered Rwanda to end support for M23 rebels and call out troops that fight along the M23 in Congo. That's precisely the moment when the war in Congo becomes an international conflict, pulling various countries into it. So, how have France and the United States orders for Rwanda made Rwanda angry, and what has been its response? This concerns the international community, and threats of expansion of this conflict to neighboring African countries are growing. That's when one wonders how and why a rebel group has sophisticated weapons sufficient to outweigh even the state of Congo. Well, the answer lies in who supports M23. Now, France and the United States have asked Rwanda to end support for the M23 rebels and pull out its troops from Congo. Implicitly, this is a way to get the international world to think that Rwanda was really supporting the M23, and now it's being asked to stop that. What's more, the Democratic Republic of Congo, in collaboration with the United Nations and Western nations, also accuses Rwanda of aiding rebels in the eastern region to assert dominance over valuable mineral reserves. Despite these accusations, Rwanda refutes any involvement. You should know that militant groups have plagued the eastern region of the DRC for decades, a legacy of conflicts dating back to the 1990s and early 2000s. It's yet to be seen who is actually supporting M23, and whether France asking Rwanda is a tactic to bring Rwanda into the spotlight. Even though there are chances that other countries might be involved in supporting M23, due to constant accusations of Rwanda, the blame appears to be shifted on Rwanda alone.
So, do you really think that France and the US can be siding with South Africa when Russia is behind South Africa and all these other black nations? I don't think so. This is very, very clearly a tactic. So family, please comment on the board. Do you believe that Kagame has done this all by himself, or do you believe that it's the Western countries that are behind M23? Who do you believe is behind M23? It seems like a lot of these parties are guilty, but it seems like Zimbabwe is the least, and Angola, etc., are the least guilty. Please comment below as well as in the chat.
Troops from Malawi, Tanzania, and South Africa are in the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo to support the Congolese army. The troops, known as the Southern African Development Community Mission in the DRC, are led by a commander from South Africa. They will be working with Congolese forces to fight armed groups in eastern DRC.
The involvement of external forces in the DRC, especially those led by South Africa under the SADC umbrella, is viewed by Rwanda as an interference that could exacerbate the already complex regional dynamics. This objection reflects Rwanda's desire to avoid an escalation that might lead to a broader regional conflict.
Please go and watch my videos on the door to Eden and the land of Eden, which is the Congo, and the Virunga Mountains. This is the door to Eden. Where is true Eden? Where are the four rivers? Is the Nile the true Jordan? Does it actually come from Lake Victoria? Because the Ruach Kodesh means spirit on the holy mountain, does it point to the land? Romans 1:20 says, that which may be known of Elohim is clearly seen, being understood by the things that he made. Where is the true Gihon? Is Pishon really circling the land of gold? Did you know the Euphrates is the Ivrites? Did you know the Nile, Jordan, went into the Mediterranean and then the Black Sea and Caspian Sea to feed the fourth river, Ganges? The Mediterranean never existed before?
And when people are leaving us to suffer, why?
Is Eden anywhere near where the Hobbit returned the circle of the earth ring to its owner? Get answers to these questions and more. Watch Africa is Eden. So where is the Virunga Mountains? Well, the Virunga Mountains are in Rwanda. Right? You're in Rwanda. So what am I saying here, family? Just be very careful about this news that you're hearing. And the reason, because here we have South Africa. We have everybody. I'm not saying, maybe Kagame, with all of his wealth, it's very suspicious, all of his wealth. But we know that the West has been destabilizing that area for the benefit of the West this whole time. So that Virunga Range is the door to Eden. As I said earlier, the Congo president has asked the UN to leave multiple times. So given that the UN is set up and run by the EU and the United States, how is it that the United States and France and the UN are planning on helping the SADC? How is it that they've been asked to leave? There is video out there of the UN troops leaving, yet they're saying that they're staying and they're on the side now of South Africa and Tanzania and this other coalition to move Kagame out. Make it make sense.
What are the goals of the South African-led intervention in the DRC, and how does it impact regional stability? The South African-led intervention in the Democratic Republic of Congo, DRC, as part of the Southern African Development Community SADC mission, aims to achieve several goals. The primary goal is to combat rebel groups operating in the DRC, focusing on groups like the M23. Rebel movements have been a long-standing source of instability in the region, and the intervention seeks to eliminate or neutralize these groups to restore peace and security. The intervention aims to restore stability in the eastern regions of the DRC, which have been marred by persistent conflict, violence, and humanitarian crises. By addressing the root causes of instability, the mission seeks to create an environment conducive to social, economic, and political development. An essential aspect of the intervention is to protect civilians from the impacts of armed conflict, including displacement, human rights abuses, and violence. Ensuring the safety and well-being of the local population is a key goal to promote long-term stability in the region. The intervention aims to prevent the conflict's cross-border threats and spillover effects into neighboring countries. By stabilizing the situation in the DRC, the mission seeks to reduce the potential for regional destabilization and conflicts.
Family, tell me, do you think that France is just, and the United States, the UN, are just looking for an advantage and are trying to scapegoat Kagame also and hoping to get on the side of the South Africans in order to access the Congo, Eden? I want you to watch my little video on Eden again, on this being the door to Eden. Because remember that South Africa is run by the Ish people, and the Ish people want to get into the Congo. Just because the leader of South Africa is black. He's actually a very close friend of Oppenheimer. So we can see that Ramaphosa has a very powerful relationship with the Ish people. And in April 28, 2022, he reassured leaders about the community's place in South Africa and assured communal leadership that the South African Ish community has an important place in society as a crucial role to play in nation building and making South Africa a better place for all. And we know that Ramaphosa is valued at over, I think it's over 400, I'm not sure if it's million. And he has very powerful relationship with the Oppenheimer family. So tell me what you think about this family. We're going to keep going. I have more to show you, but I would like you to post your thoughts on this. And again, don't forget, Musevene was the one who built up Kagame after he was financially supported and militarily propped up by Libya, by Gaddafi, before he was assassinated. What are your thoughts on this? Please comment below. Comment below, not just in the chat, family, but please comment on the board, and do not comment more than once, because I just delete. If you comment more than once on my channel board, I will delete you, because I'll think that you're a spammer, party to hiding my channel and making it look like I'm getting the odd view when my channel's closed.
The intervention's impact on regional stability depends on coordinating efforts among SADC member states and other stakeholders. Collaborative actions that address shared concerns and promote mutual understanding can enhance stability in the broader Great Lakes region. But as Rwanda is standing against the South African-led intervention in the DRC, does this mean a conflict is a must? Rwanda's opposition to the South African-led intervention in the DRC does not necessarily mean that conflict is inevitable. While tensions may be heightened due to differing perspectives and interests, the situation can still be resolved through diplomatic means, including communication and negotiation.
So now that South Africa has escalated this situation and they're sending more troops, right, to the Goma area to combat this M23, when South Africa gets involved, you know BRICS is involved. And when BRICS is involved, you know Russia is involved. Who's behind Rwanda? Who's behind M23? I don't think they want that smoke, so that's why they're running. They're meeting, Peace Security Council, let's meet, let's find solution. And the madness is that they're considering the need for support from the UN. You want support from the UN? The same UN that are being kicked out of the DRC this year? That's the same UN that you're getting ready to call on to come and help? Are you under a spell? Is the Peace and Security Council of the AU under a spell? Or do you take us for fools? It has to be one or the other.
These are the many contradictions that have been going on over the course of this hidden war, which they're now making a little more public. And you know, because they're making it a little more public on YouTube. There is some kind of media play or hidden agenda behind this for the West. Should we give more grace to Rwanda and Uganda and simply get rid of their corrupt leaders? But in truth, family, do you think that just all these leaders just need to be replaced and removed so that people aren't harmed? So people aren't harmed in Rwanda, people aren't harmed in Congo, people aren't harmed in Uganda, that they should just get rid of most of these leaders and start fresh and try to keep peace in the area and blast the West out of there. Let me know on the board, family, and in the comments. Shalom.
I've been happy for Congo considering the projection by IMF. You know, the IMF projected Congo's economy to be really good, the GDP per capita actually surpassing that of Kenya. And now we are talking of a war. Can't be out here complaining about the West agenda against the people of Congo, and then y'all declaring war against your neighboring country, Rwandese? Come on. And we have to talk. Kagame has to come out clean and admit, and he needs to stop funding M23 if he's been doing it. Like, can these people just come together? We don't want war. No. And I hope Musevene and Madame Suluhu and Ruto should come out strongly and sit down these gentlemen. We can't have East African countries fighting each other.
Baruch, fam. And please go ahead and go to intoalltruth.net to pick up the lifestyle book or the calendar so you can keep these appointed times. May Yah bless you and keep you and cause his face to shine on you. May he be gracious, lift the light of his countenance, and give you shalom.
Let those that hate thee flee from before thee. Let all of Yasharah, Yisrael, who love, worship, and praise Yahweh, give him thanks by saying hallelujah.